Welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And I'm going to continue my Aquarius rising talk. And really, it's just, you can get to know yourself by understanding your chart and you can see it unfold. Um, but it's also totally a video about me. I'm just talking. I'm not teaching exactly. The teaching is a byproduct of me sharing. So this is really about sharing just some of my realizations about myself and Aquarius energy, and just it's tied together with astrology. It's crystallized. And let's just go for it, right? So I think each Aquarius is different, and it depends upon where those planets are placed. So for me, I have Saturn in Cancer and Uranus in Scorpio. So that's two water signs. Yet it's two planets in water signs. And Aquarius is like the ultimate air sign. It's genius status. Um, I would definitely say multidimensional. Uh, and it's like just reflecting on my life, looking out. I saw my mom as an emotional, illogical person. And I remember at a very young age going, well, and the emotion she expresses a lot of is like anger and self pity. And I'm like, is there a way we could just kind of like move around this? If we have to feel feelings, can we like just think about them? Maybe this will be like, put on some rubber gloves, put on like a bodysuit. If we're going to have to go jump into the ocean, maybe we could like go in a submarine or something. Like, is there a way to. I viewed emotions as dangerous for sure. And also growing up, all gay, whatever we want to call it, um, during that period, when the era that I grew up in, the generation, it was, and like in the state, town, country, is basically considered the most evil thing in the world. And so, once again, emotions or expression was considered dangerous. So it's like, okay, my body wants to do all these things, it's out of control and it's dangerous and it's evil. So, expression of emotions, expression of self was dangerous, unpleasant, and maybe I could just like wash my hands of all that, throw it away. And another thing that was really early on was death. My two Aquarius, my brother and my sister are Aquarian, and we adopted them after their parents died in a plane crash. Aviation is an Aquarius thing. My dad is an Aquarius, so is his sister that died. And so at early on, death was pretty in my face. It was like, okay, shit doesn't last. And so my mom had some Aquarian things going on with her. My dad is an Aquarius. And so I would say definitely lived in a multicultural Aquarius childhood family upbringing. We had the neighborhood over. One of my, actually, two of my sisters were really popular in school. And so there was a huge network of people and social. My brother, in a really weird way, was popular. And he's an Aquarius with a Pisces moon. So he's kind of like this weird enigma, yet he managed to have his own popularity. And so those three were very popular. And they're like all air signs. Uh, and so there was a lot of social it was a big family anyways. But then we always had friends over, big social network uh, throughout the schooling years. And my dad teaches English to foreigners. And he would always, every once in a while, he'd have a party. He always had his traditional, like, Halloween party. And then I think he did, like, a New Year's. But then it was always the Halloween party for sure. And we always had foreign people from all over the world of different backgrounds at our house. And then my dad was also part of the foreign exchange program at the university. So we always thought it was fun. We always had someone from another land living in our house for a few months or so. And so that was like my Aquarius upbringing. On my mom's side, her dad is an Aquarius who did military, and then after that founded his own restaurant, and it became very popular and is actually like a pillar in the community, one of those old fashioned mom and pops fast food joints. Uh, and so my grandfather is an Aquarius and definitely Aquarian, like in so many ways. And he lived to his 90s, and he he was like, I don't know, I can't really put it into words how my grandfather was, but he was the grandfather I liked. And really, he had money too, because he's a self-made millionaire. And that was, he did it all from scratch. He took his little bits amount of money from like World War II and created the dream of owning a little restaurant that he enjoyed going to when he was in the military. He brought that over, and then he sold that one and then bought another one and stayed with that one. And so he like created that and was wealthy enough to buy his kids, my mom, to help support buying them a house. And that really was like a cock block to my dad. And my dad had issues with that because my dad wanted to do it all on his own, the vision of creating his own house. So my dad actually built two of the houses that we've lived in. My dad is an English teacher, yet he managed to design and build our houses. So my dad is like super smart and capable of, he did some of the electric work, he did some of the plumbing, he was like a jack of all trades, and he just had it in him. He did a little bit of mechanic work as well. But my dad really loves to farm. But then his side hobby was astronomy. We were like probably the only family in the neighborhood who had a huge telescope. Like my dad one year decided that he was going to buy himself a telescope, and like the lens on it was like that big. It was like huge. And so my dad had a lot of interests, a lot of unknown interests, but so he became an organic farmer, like gardener and farmer, before organic was even popular. He was self-taught. So I didn't really realize that until I'm kind of making this video, that my dad is notable in a for like, when you're little you're like, oh, okay, dad built a house, big deal. But then today I'm going, but he's an English teacher. What is an English teacher? And then when designing plans, doing electrical work, plumbing, and even getting out there with the freaking hammer, even getting out there pouring cement for the foundation. I'm like, whoa. Like, obviously other people helped, he hired them and stuff, but he actually designed it and built a lot of it himself. And so I remember we had this huge inherited chunk of land, and he decided he was going to put in an irrigation system. He had me and my brother and him dig out a lot of that and put it in. Once again, he was designing, picking it out, buying the parts, putting it all together, and then with the assistance of other people, instructing them on how to put together this like underground pipeline irrigation system. So I'm like, today, as I talk about it, I'm going, holy crap. Maybe my mom was right the whole time. Dad is smart. I was like, because just living with them, just the everyday stuff of like cooking, cleaning, daily maintenance of the self, you don't see that. You see it in the accomplishments. So my dad has always been very hardworking, very always on a project, a building construction project of some type. And that was the norm, but I didn't really pay attention to it. I was going through my own bullshit my whole life. So didn't even know we were going to go down that road. But that's where the Aquarius patterns come in. It was actually until I hit my 30s when I started to give my dad credit and started to see him for who he was. And then obviously this moment was a huge realization. But what I was gonna talk about is, how to maybe get to an Aquarius, how to talk and communicate with Aquarians, and maybe things you didn't know. That's where I thought we were going to go. But obviously, we looked at some of those foundation influences. So I have a really good book on astrology and psychology, and it talks about the family dynamics that go on with each of the star signs and some of the aspects. And so you just don't pick things up out of nowhere. Like the Aries streak in me comes from my mom, who's an Aries with a Leo moon. The Aquarian streak in me comes from my dad, who's an Aquarius. I think he has a Gemini moon. And so you inherit, you kind of pick up through the environment, through conditioning, the astrological traits of your parents, and it is reflected in your chart. So it's no wonder why the last 4 people I wanted as my boyfriend had Aquarius moon. And one of my favorites was an Aries with an Aquarius moon. Very interesting stuff. So one thing is, I dropped the word interesting and curious and intriguing. I drop those words a lot. My mind needs to be fascinated and curious about things. Talking about your meal is not interesting to me. Talking about how maybe you had an epiphany about your meal while you're eating your meal, well, that will be interesting. So I am attracted to unusual, quirky, and different. And then some things you get maybe over time. Right now, I'm actually working in a vitamin department, and there's all these old people that shop at this store, and I'm being exposed for the first time to this whole other side of life of aging and elderly people. And what I learned is I actually like old people. So it really depends upon the situation and the people. There's always really negative, old crotchety people, and there's really positive ones, and there's a scale of people anyways. And within this older group of people, some of the people I have just fallen in love with. I'm like, it's a different kind of love, and it's a different type of appreciation for old people. And so I feel like Aquarians may really like old people. That's I think a little bit Aquarius about me. It was like this one little old lady, I just want to take her home and be her caretaker, and I want her to be my new grandma, and I just love her. This other lady, I was like, let's get married. I'm like, you're just so spicy, so weird and cool. She has an Aquarius moon. She has a Scorpio rise with Aquarius moon. So I'm like, and she's a Libra. So I was like, kind of in a mental love affair. I'll do a lot of mental love affairs with people. And it doesn't have to be sexual. It's just that I'm very now intrigued with you and I'm delighted by your presence. And now that I'm older, I'm delighted by you, but I want to somehow create a space where you can be you. So I can enjoy you being your authentic you-ness. And I feel like maybe that's where a lot of people don't understand Aquarius. Aquarius appreciates you. So they might feel if they interact with you in certain ways, then that will change your behavior and you won't be the you that they like about you. So that might be one reason why they might feel cold and detached. Another thing that I'm guilty of is if I like someone, I'm kind of mean to them. I'm kind of rude. I'm kind of distant, cold. I won't even talk to you. Or I will talk to you, but then I'll cut it off. Like I might not engage. But then at other times, I'll be very sympathetic to your needs, but not sympathetic to you. And obviously, it's like, and you have to look at their childhood. I feel like, like my brother and sister, they had to cope with the death of their parents at a very young age. The trauma, so that's I don't, they're never talking about it, but it definitely had an effect on them. And I think my dad went through a lot of trauma with his mom and then war and some other weird things that have happened through his life. So I think Aquarians are have had some type of strange trauma uh, that makes them not so engaging in their personal life. They're like, well, what has gone on at one point in my life was such a shithole. Let's not talk about it. Let's not bond over my pile of shit, my baggage. Let's just kind of organize it, shove it in the closet. But I don't want to burden you with my baggage. So I feel like that goes on with Aquarius. Another thing that goes on for me is the environment. I pretty much hate people for trashing the earth. I'm like, you're shitting in our sandbox. That attitude of you're willing to destroy natural resources for your own gain and not your brothers, not your sisters, not the world, not the future generation. That is the only reason, that's the number one reason why I don't like people. I'm like, so I have some Aquarius things. I'm like, it's really easy to save the planet. Just stop having so many babies. It's really easy to ascend the planet. Just offer free education. There's a easy way to fix the economy. Offer free education. So I feel like there might be an environmentalist inside of every Aquarian, yet it may not be the thing that they're going after. But it's like, people can talk shit all they want on different things, but most people don't realize if you really want to bother me, go chop down a tree for no reason. Go step on a bird's nest full of eggs for no reason. Put yourself first in front of that old person in line. Like you do these selfish things, then I'm gonna not like you. Then I'm gonna have an issue. So that's how you hurt your Aquarian. You got to possibly hurt the environment in some way. I remember someone was talking trash on like some tree that he hated and maybe he chopped it down. I looked at him and I go, you take your little man syndrome and you just shove it, and you're taking out your mother's issues on the planet, so fuck you. So you might get this uh strike. You might get the samurai sword cut into you when when they will when an Aquarius attacks. They might psychologically destroy you in a matter of seconds. They'll pinpoint your bullshit and just shove it in your face. Uh, and that translation is, you're really being unsympathetic to the environment. We are the environment. The environment is our lungs. The environment is our food supply. The cleaner the air, the more conscious we are. So it's like, you want to reach enlightenment, just clean up the air. That's all that was fucking needed. And like, so sometimes they can take a very big thing and narrow it down into a very simple sentence. Um, a reason why I may shy away or go away, it's simple. You've done something emotional, and probably on the lower emotional scale, that I find confusing and potentially harmful. And you've probably done it more than once in subtle ways. And I've told you more than once in ways not to do that. I might have said, just ground. Ground before you meet me. Control yourself. Pre-plan. I like planning out I like to schedule in my unscheduled time. I like to schedule in time to not be so scheduled. So that's like my number one. Schedule in your allotted time, show up on time. If you do any of the flaky, giving yourself excuses, if you lie, if you're giving yourself the option not to show up to the appointment that you're requesting, then I'm going to distance myself. So I feel like distance is where it can go different ways. The other reason why I might distance myself is because I want you to meet me in my mind. I want to have a mental connection with you, a psychic one, a bond, a meeting of the minds where the bodies might be separate, but the minds are together. The hearts might be separate, but I can feel an empathic connection with you. So if I can feel an empathic bond and a mental bond, then I'll be with you and around you. If you're doing things to sever that, which would then be everything being a physical bond, then I will probably separate myself from you because it's taxing. So what's really interesting also that I feel like is Aquarius, but it's also very maybe Pisces, is being an empty slate, an empty vessel, like a no mind, just an empty channel of the universe. So there's this Aquarian who I've always found very attractive and mysterious and powerful and sexy and all that stuff. And then, so I've like seen him on the same connection site, and his last reinvention of his paragraph was learn to be nobody, be nobody. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I get it. It's like, be no one. Quit being so self-important. Quit being so ego-centered that you ruin your relationships. I need, I want. I expect, it has to go this way. That's all but when you're no one, you're like accommodating, you're flowing, you're open. I felt like he was saying, just be really open. And I'm like, yeah, like like a blank slate, like a clear lake. Be calm in the mind. Allow that higher power, that intuition, that crown chakra energy to move through you. Channel the divine through your being, like purify. Like it was all said with that simple statement, be nobody. Like if you can't really figure that out, be nobody in the world is actually being a great person, you know? So here's my clear quartz, and I really like it. It's like, be clear with yourself, be clear with your energy. And clear quartz definitely helps with my crown chakra. And I was following uh, an Aquarius online. It was like how to date an Aquarius. Like she was giving tips and stuff. And I love how she said crown chakra down. And I'm like, yes, that's so me. So I would say things are undefined. Like if you leave God as an undefined thing, you can kind of access it more. Like we don't pay attention to air. Air is between us. Yet it's there, but we don't think about the air. We don't see it. It's like clear and invisible. And so the space is clear and invisible. In a weird way, space is immeasurable. Like we can only measure space with objects in it, but space itself is immeasurable, and it touches everything and is connected. And so space is, I go, my element is space. Even when I was younger, playing around with like shamanism and guided meditation, they're like, go out into nature and find your safe place. I go, this isn't my planet. Get me out of here. I feel safe up there. Get me up there. So I would take myself to space. And then I would go to a place where there were no stars. I'm like, everything's too active. Get me away from all that. Let me go to a calm, quiet, dark, empty space, out in space. So I feel like Aquarian or Aquarius type personalities might like literally space. And my favorite rocks in my mineral collection, my crystal, rock, and gem collection are all like moldavite. I felt like is like my other half. Like I feel like it's a part of me. I feel like it works with my energy. It purifies me. It heals me. It does everything it needs to do for me. I feel like that stone in particular is like my lifesaver. The other one, Libyan glass, all these type of like tektites, all these like meteor impact glass materials, meteorites, all this space stuff really I find is my healing stones. You know, I'm like, whoa, so this is what you guys were talking about. I was like, I didn't have a clue. So I feel like the greatest gift I could give someone I care about is my presence, my awareness, and my attention. And I feel like that's a deeper form of love. To have you in my space, you must be pretty special. Um, Working on clearing my space is like a priority for me. So my connection with Source comes through not defining it, but creating a space to allow it in, into my mind, into my aura, into my heart, into my body, into my experiences. So I see how my life as an Aquarius rising has opened me up to the Aquarius experience, but it's been a development. Like I think key components have always naturally been there. Like why did I choose to see emotions as not valuable? Like not, it's not a priority. Logic and thinking isn't a priority, it's more of a trap, but it's just mindfulness is what I like. So I would say it's like the yin side, the more feminine side of the Aquarius nature is like a Zen mind. It's like open and receptive and clear and clean and receptive. but it's mentally receptive. And I love being mentally receptive, but not to the bullshit, to the divine. So I feel like that's where I kind of cross over into Pisces world. So I feel like I always have to explain everything. And that might be an Aquarius thing as well. So, hope you like this. I'm just talking about my chart with the Aquarius rising and just kind of, and it might give you a clue into Aquarius needs and values. So if you want to be close to Aquarius, you can navigate that better. Hopefully you got a few clues on maybe what they appreciate.